Всім доброго дня.
Good afternoon, everyone. We start our round table. Topic is reform of the electricity market, new path from producer to consumer. I would like to say that this event is in the framework of increase of civil society influence and political dialogue concerning reform and adjacent sectors according to association agreement, and it is supported by the European Union and co-finance of Renaissance Foundation. And we have honorable speakers of our round table. I hope you know them. This is Pidlisetskyi, MP of Ukraine, member of the Verkhovna Rada, Yuliya Kovaliv, head of the Office of National Investment Council under the President of Ukraine, Andriy Nemyrovskyi, Director of Market Development and Service of Clients in Ukrenergo, and this is Andriy Perevertaiev, my colleague. He is an international independent expert working with the National Bank. So I am Svitlana Holikova. I am a moderator today, and I will tell you about many things. So we have an agenda, and we will allocate 15 minutes to each speaker, and then we will have 20 or 25 minutes for your questions to our speakers. And first I would like to say that we had a good event yesterday. Petro Poroshenko, President of Ukraine, signed the law on electricity market. And we waited for this for 2 months after it was adopted by the Supreme Council, and after some obstacles were lifted. And there are political forces that did not like this new law. And there was criticism that we have a British pool now that works in Britain. But unfortunately, this is not the case, and our pool also works not efficiently. That's why reform of electricity market is the requirement, not only of the association agreement with the EU, but also this is the urgent need to change the energy market that is more complex than gas market, in my opinion. And what this law brings, what political and economic consequences of its adoption, and how it will be viewed by society, and what is the role of the Supreme Council in this event. And about all this, we will hear from Lev Pidlisetskyi. Thank you. So we have this law now, and it is signed, and I would like to go back and tell you about the events yesterday in the news on TV. Some information was presented in some non-correct way, and I would like to say that this law, the new model, won't appear starting today. Today we are going to make steps to implement this law. And according to this law, and this is objective reality, this will be done in 2 years, and this is the transitional stage, technical and preparatory period, and there will be 1 year of transition. And then I will tell you more about it. So what is the model for 2 years? This is the model of energy pool, when all the producers sell the electricity at the regulated price established by NGREKP, and this is to Energo market company. Then it mixes all this energy, and then it uses the regulated price of the regulator, and energy market sells it to Obelergo, and each Obelergo sells it to each consumer. So the consumer has the choice whether to buy according to the rules and conditions provided by Obelergo or not to buy. So no other options. They cannot trade on this issue. So this model is not adequate. Maybe it had some advantages if we believe that the management of this price is correct, and maybe this model can function properly. But if there is some error in some element of the market in this way, is ruined. So we have billions of debts, and there is mistrust of the population, consumers, to formation of this price, and there is ground for such mistrust. What this new model provides? It provides competition in two segments. First, competition in the segment of production, when each producer compete and tries to get the most efficient cost in order to be more efficient in the market and sell electricity at the most favorable price. And there is competition in the market that leads to dying out of inefficient producers, because inefficient producers won't be able to compete. And we as consumers, we won't pay for the work of inefficient producers, and that is important. So the next is the level of competition between sellers. Each consumer will choose the supplier, and now we have one Obelergo, and now we will have even 48. And when you have 48 licensed sellers who sell electricity, and this 48 licensed companies, they have the license for gas, and they can provide other services. So there is competition between sellers, and in this way there is efficient price, because for each consumer, when they have the needs, so the seller will try to meet those needs and to form the best proposal, the best package for consumers. So what happens between the seller and the producer? There appear such new institutions as the market day had, and the balancing market, and the market auxiliary services. So this is market, this is a trading platform where the producers sell electricity and find their consumers, and also trader appears. I won't go into detail about it. The trader is one of the players in the market, and so traders, those who are, they can be intermediary, but the trader is the organization that buys electricity in order to resell it, but not in order to supply electricity. So what we have in the new model, and we have natural monopolies. No one canceled them, because no one will build new electricity lines. So we have a natural monopoly, Ukrenergo company, and natural monopoly, the system of distribution network, and Obelergo, and these distribution networks, they will become the basis for the activity and the exclusive activity of Obelergo. This is the operator of transmission distribution system, and I believe that each Obelergo will want this because they have this asset and they can earn money in this, but the Obelergo will be obliged to provide equal access for all the sellers of electricity energy in order to provide this electricity to consumers. Obelenерgo do not have the right to sell electricity independently. So this is a third energy package that envisages the division of the activities, and they cannot do it by themselves. They will create their companies that will sell through these networks, but they will do this at the same in the same conditions of access to the network as any other company. So this is the model of the market. And concerning the transitional period, the new model of the market will work starting 1st July 2019, and this will be the introduction of all the segments of the market, the day-ahead market, the balancing market, and this market, there will be licensed suppliers on the market, licensed traders, and licensed other participants of the market, and the big consumers, commercial or production consumers, that they will be able to buy electricity from the new licensed suppliers that will provide this service. So in a year, there will be transitional variant of Obelenерgo. They will be called Obelenерgo, will get the status of so-called the supply of universal services, in order that the state had minimal influence in order to have influence to defend the rights of household suppliers and to regulate the cost. And starting July 2019, any household consumer will have the right, any other supplier that will appear. One more thing concerning this transitional period, so this 2019-2020, this is not even interrelationship, but the principle of financing of the green tariff, those who produce green energy. For the producers of green energy, they maybe won't feel it, because until 2020, starting 2019, for all green generation, the delta between the price in the market and the green tariff, the Energoatom company will pay for this, and starting 2020, this delta will be paid by each consumer, where the price of the difference will be put in the tariff of the company, Ukrenergo. So this is the difference that will be in this transition period. So this is about the new model and what challenges we have. First, in order to introduce this, so it seems that 2 years is a long period, but a lot should be done, and more than 100 different activities are planned, different legislative acts, bylaws, and in the law we included everything we needed, but there are still other bylaws that are in the sphere of responsibility of the regulator and the ministry and other participants of the market, and also the responsibility of the actors of the market, that they should implement the norms of the law. And all this happened during the next 2 years. This is the network code, the distribution network code, and the system of transmission code. So, and also so the market should be competitive, objective, non-monopolized. What should we do for this? It's great that we have Yuliya Kovaliv here today, and I believe that this is the start to open doors to welcome new participants to the market, and there is a need to privatize Transenerhokonsaltynh in order that Transenerhokonsaltynh became now they have the opportunity to become a big player in the market that will be able to compete with the biggest participant of heat generation of data company, and the introduction of competition with the tech company. This is objective necessity for the efficient functioning of the electricity market. Second thing I want to say, what we can get and what pluses we have. This is opening the markets with Europe, and the first option is the joining of the two energy system, and this is a wonderful area, but we started working with this area from 2003, and it is difficult, and we couldn't even imagine such unification. This is the right choice, but it is hard to reach this goal. What can be done? We can find the opportunity to build interconnectors with Europe, and the opportunities to get access of European electrical energy to the market of Ukraine to support the balance and to provide independence from supply of electrical energy from Russia, because we have unified system with Russia and Belarus, and to create real competition in the market of electricity. So these are the measures that should be implemented in order this model started to work efficiently. So maybe 1 minute. I would like to say that we did a lot, and this is the success of everyone who is working in energy sector, and this is a big step ahead that was made by all European countries, including mentioned by many, and especially by some Great Britain. But Great Britain, they used new models starting 2009, but we continue to say that we work according to a British model, but we live according to the older model that ended in 2009. So we should move ahead. Competition is not ideal, but no one invented something better. That's why we should use all the opportunities. And what is important, we should see that all the bodies that are responsible for implementation of law, and including regulator, they should work efficiently, and they should do their homework. They should adopt bylaws, and they should be really independent from all the participants, and they should support all the consumers in order to get quality services. Thank you, Liv.
Thank you. What Mr. Leo said is about the transition period, which is most complicated time. We will be discussing this a little bit later. I would like to give the floor to Yuliya Kovaliv. She has a good experience, interesting experience of working both inside the regulator. She is an insider, and now she is working in the National Investment Council under the President of Ukraine. Yesterday, President Poroshenko said that even Investment Council will be considering this issue of electricity market. So what way investments are possible, and in which area of electricity sector, into generation or supply, in which part investments will be directed Will the new model facilitate the investments? Good afternoon, colleagues. I would like to greet everyone with signing of the law. It is very important that the signing of the law coincides with the discussion stirring up of the new electricity energy sector strategy of Ukraine. We are talking that the electricity sector is being fundamentally modified in Ukraine these days. So when we are talking about launching of the market, we at the same time are at the final stage in the development of the electricity energy sector strategies. In fact, talking about the previous version of 2011 of this electricity sector strategy, I took part in this version development. Now we have made a new step ahead. The new law allows us to launch the third energy package requirements in Ukraine, while systemic institutional changes in the electricity sector are important. Why we can't move ahead without this changes? The reform of gas market started earlier in 2014. In 2015 the law was adopted. What we see within 3 years, we have not only decreased consumption, but the other structure of the sector and the other role of the sector. We can see the competition and the classic model. We have 3 large world-known gas traders which already have opened their representative offices in Ukraine and compete for Ukrainian consumers. We see last year and this year first results of the investments, and by small steps, but we see that the production of gas is been increasing already. So by 2020 we can get 27 billion cubic meters of gas production, which was the target set. Without the rules of the game, no investor will play in the market. How investors look on the Ukraine? Besides the general macroeconomic situation, we have stabilization and positive signals this year to the foreign environment. Investors would like to see the same rules of the game as in other countries, but unfortunately Ukrainian market is not seen as this. The second, we have the status quo, which without investments during 15 years, we will feel not only a deficit of electricity supply, and the electricity sector is the system of blood of the whole our national economy. We will be losing on the inefficiency of lines and the inefficiency of generation, where generation performance factors are low, and this would incur losses both to consumers and generators, and this concerns development of the energy strategy. The experts who have developed this framework of this document, they said that for next 20 years the energy sector will need 15 through 20 billion investments. Looking into the structure, this is about 5 to 6 billions in to modernization and 5 billion for new generation. Not less important are investment in the transmission lines, and here the figures are 6 to 7 billion of investments into transmission and distribution grids. And the painful topic is in this sector is investment into environmental projects, into treatment facilities, into emissions filtering facilities, where we also speak about billions of dollars. Without investment, this sector will not develop. So today we should choose either consumers will pay for investments, both households and businesses, and the result, businesses will become less competitive at the foreign market, so we can engage cheap long-term financing from investors, private investors. Why it is important to change the structure of work on the market? This would specifically be of impact on investment procedures. First, transparent procedures should be similar to gas market, which make financing cheaper very fast. This is very easy because the risks which every market player has in regulation by the regulator, by the ministry, not in the mechanisms which work on competitive basis, is higher. So any lender or investor having such risk, its expectations could be not met. There was a vivid example of the green tariffs, which unfortunately, in the opinion of investors, was of negative impact on the image of the country, talking about its investment attractiveness. The second, we need not only money, we need also technologies in this sector. We need access to the largest players on the equipment manufacturing market, their readiness to work with our generators and distributors in order to modernize the sector, not only in financial terms but in technological terms. The third, this would be the impetus for further privatization. This is very direct dependence from the cost of Transenerhokonsaltynh and the Ukrenergo's regional DSOs. So this law and declaration that we are ready to launch new market, we increase capitalization of the assets, which I hope will be privatized via tenders soon. Coming back to practices, if we take European rules for investment, the law provides for the mechanism of construction of new generation facilities. Why it is important? Beforehand, we had relevant programs or regulations in place previously approved by various regulators and ministries, but looking into the efficiency of the regulated projects, their performance, their efficiency was very low. The state will not be as efficient investor as private investors are. So when a tender for modernization or building of new capacities, new generation, we will have the opportunity to get the best, the most efficient and the least cost offers from businesses. Why? Because all these things will where our prices are the basis of all of everything, we will be competitive with European countries, Belarus, with whom we are competing in the export markets, and it is also important what will be in the new law when businesses were frightened in the expectation of the adoption of this law. It is important for businesses not only the amount of tariffs, but also stability is important for them. And it should not change every year or every 3 years, because their projects usually attract long-term capital. What we receive in brief in the prospects of 3 to 5 years, talking about drafting of regulations, we will get additional value during privatization. Ukrenergo's regional DSOs, the buyers will get the answer to question what will be happening to unbundling, how we will be operating, because without this law it was quite hardly understandable what an investor will buy, and whether the supplier generation is overpriced, we will get less cost funding, which is very important for attracting the funds into the modernization of the existing generation. And transmission and distribution operators. We now see the development of the green energy. In renewable energy, we see large potential. Every month we see new pieces of news about different European, Chinese, US, Korean green sector companies taking investment decisions into RE. Important and the highest risk before us is to implement the law properly, because the law on electricity market is the white book of key rules of the game, setting forth the rules how the electricity market will work, and it is much important than for the gas market. This market operates 24 hours a day on daily basis. Maybe partially the problem will not be so sore in future, but now we are talking about balancing the system on hourly basis. So the ideology should be preserved, not distorted in future. To this end, the action plan proposes establishment of the coordination council or coordination board, and it would be good to engage into this board foreign experts from Europe so that we can just transpose the rules of the game from Europe. So that we not invent new rules which will eventually become obstacles or barriers to attracting large investors, large companies, because electricity sector is a sector of large players and large investors. Thank you very much, Ms. Yuliya. The question of technologies and technological content of the new market may be one of the key issues, as well as organizational matters. I would like to give the floor to Andriy Nemyrovskyi, representing our future transmission system operator in global scope, not only in Ukraine but also outside Ukraine, because you will be responsible for trans-border trade, and we know that there is also energy community remarks. Almost 1/3 of this transition measures, it is connected with Ukrenergo. How you are getting prepared to this, how corporatization of the company can go, and the technological component is very important, but the balancing market should start operating in 2 or 3 years. In terms of technology, this is the most complicated and the most expensive side. What is your opinion?
Thank you, Svitlana. I would like to greet everyone. So, Lev Teofilovich told us a lot about the law we adopted, and this law was signed yesterday. It outlines the vector and shows how energy market of Ukraine will work. I would like to go into more detail about Ukrenergo in this process and its role in this, because that's what we live during this time, and we have Ukrenergo, and there are conditions created for successful implementation of this new market. And I also responsible for introduction of the new model in Ukraine, and on the 1st of June we provided to the regulator the project documents on transmission system and metering, and we didn't wait for the formal adoption of law, and we worked efficiently on the creation of bylaws, and also coordination center was created at the regulator, and it helped us to issue this bylaws. So I have optimism concerning bylaws and implementation of law. Second, what Svitlana said, this is a balancing market disconnected with money and technology, buying of equipment and infrastructure, and the deadline 1st July 2019. This is in 2 years, and this is a short term. In Ukrenergo we consult with all potential partners, Alstom, Siemens, and other companies, big companies that have experience in creation of the software, and then they say that the deadline that was set is too ambitious. They don't say that this is not possible, but the situation is rather difficult, and one of the key acute issues for Ukrenergo and for the new market of electricity is that we in Ukrenergo, we should quickly buy and set the solutions for the balancing market, and this is costly, and we do not have time for mistakes. So we want to save money, and all the procedures, especially in the recent years, we try to save more, and we want to have good prospects, and Ukrainian companies intend that this price will be lower, but then they won't be able to create this software. So there is such a risk. That's why in Ukrenergo we believe that in the documentation there should be provisions that there should be experience of introduction of this software in European countries. So this will be one of the requirements for the software. And about the prospects of the new market, I believe that the new market that we adopt due to this new law, it won't yield the result if Ukrainian energy system won't be connected to European system, synchronized or without full synchronization. But we should open the border, and we should be competitive, because several companies provide 95% atom, Detect and Ukregidra. These are three companies that are in this consumption group. And we should open borders for free transmission of electrical energy, and only in this case there will be competition and we receive efficient price for the end user. Ukrenergo is the operator and the future operator of transmission when we undergo certification. It is responsible for interconnectors, and we want today the capacity with Europe, including Moldova, is about 5 gigawatt. So this is half of atom. This is about 25% of daily. So we have good transmission, but the new law will also envisage the creation of the new lines, and the investor who will build this line, he will have the preferential use of this line and will get free access to this line. So we can speak about the law for hours and about the prospects we have now. I would like to speak about one prospect, and then we will answer questions. Recently, we were at the Cabinet of Ministers. There was a meeting there, and one of the members of the cabinet, they said, "Do you know that they do not, that the market do not understand what you do?" And we said that we in Ukrenergo, people addressed for consultations, and there are small companies that had they are ready to compensate 100% of electricity for the heating of water if additional services market will be introduced. So there will be new markets created, new segments of the market will be created, but we should work hard during these 2 years. And about corporatization in the Ukrenergo company, they do everything possible to carry out corporatization. About the dates this year in autumn, we will have a supervisory board, and this corporatization, this is not my area of responsibility, but I know that this work is ongoing, and the supervisory board will be established in September. Thank you very much. So maybe you have questions to the speakers, and we will speak about it. And now we go to the next part of our roundtable. This is the issue concerning the introduction of the new market and trading on the market, about the market players and what should be done in order it to happen. So Держproект created and produced materials on this, and we did it. This was done beforehand, not today, not yesterday, and we used the version that was voted during last voting. So there are some differences from the document that was signed concerning special obligations. This part was taken away, so please pay attention to this. So what will happen during this transitional period, during these 2 years, and what is the role of the Center of Coordination, and who should head this process? So we should have our own Jerzy Buzek, who would take responsibility for all these reforms and would win together with Ukraine. I would like to give the floor to Andriy Perevertaiev. He is one of the participants of the preparatory work, and he knows all the problems of preparation work, and they had more than 1,600 changes to the draft law, and this group fruitfully worked. So tell us, please, about this transitional period, the stages, and what are the main activities during this period. Thank you, Svitlana Leonidovna, for the word, and thank you, Dixie Group, that you've prepared such a material, and many issues concerning implementation are included in this material. I would like to focus on two things. First, the activity of the ministry concerning implementation of law, and second, about the pool of risks that are included there or may arise during this period, if we look at it closer. Concerning the ministry, it actively cooperates with international financial institutions, and we have the support of the World Bank and the European Commission, and the ministry now have consultants who have helped to develop bylaws, and we actively help energy market. At the ministry, they developed a plan of implementation of this market of electricity energy. And there are two basic things we start to speak about. And first, Yuliya told us about it, about investment and work with investors, and the document that should be prepared, and the order of preparation of the contest. And this document should meet the requirements of investors. It should provide transparent conditions. And second, the risk of problems with the supplying, and so European consultants help to overcome this problem, and there should be a risk management system, monitoring of supply, the assessment, of supply and also provision of information about supply in the market. So this is a difficult process because we are at the forefront in the preparation of such documents, and the EU only starts to systemize the requirements to common standards, and this document will be one of the basic, and then it can be used. And together with colleagues, we work with the energy community, with those experts, and in 2 or 3 months after all internal agreements, we will present it to the public for discussion. And about coordination center, this is an acute issue. This is the basic thing. If we do not do the center efficient, and if we do not consolidate the efforts of all stakeholders, the market won't work. So these 2 years that are allocated for this preparatory stage, this time is not enough, because the tasks are difficult, and there are many problems concerning balancing market, and I doubt that we will start this market in 2 years, or it will be efficient, because these deadlines do not look real. And Ukrenergo, in this sense, is all the procedures are completed, and they will be able to announce a tender, but there are other actors, and energy market, it is in its initial stage, and the ministry is ready to help in the development of documentation that is needed. But unfortunately, at this moment, we are not ready, and these issues, they can become obstacles in work. And speaking about European and my personal experience, after everything is implemented, we will need 1 more year to have test calculations, and everyone should get accustomed to the new rules, and the time will show what we will be able to implement. About the structure and the head of the central committee, we hope that we will have these issues resolved in several weeks. We will know the names of these people. I do not want to guess. So this is an important step that should be made for efficient implementation. And also we discuss actively the project office creation, the executive committee of the coordination center. Our European colleagues that implemented these models, they say that practically all the risks are the risks of bylaws, and preliminary analysis of the rules of the market that are worked on it, they showed that we only start to learn, and we do not know what awaits energy company in the new market. And concerning such white spots that I see as an expert is the low interest of energy companies. This negative experience with 663 law that was not implemented, it creates a bad background for the companies to invest their resources, financial resources, in the implementation of this new market. And European colleagues and experience show that it leads to the errors, and who will be the first one who will be efficient in the market will get the first profit, and if you don't do anything, if you don't learn, you will lose. So in 2 years, we should explain this to everyone, and our European colleagues, they are ready to show the losses that the companies sustained when they worked inefficiently or they took erroneous decisions. So the focus here and the most difficult work is for Ukrenergo, because they should separate, there should be separate detachments, separate departments. So this is the supplier that should work with different consumers to create a system of billing, the system of forecasting. So this is a big scope of work, and the situation looks bleak at the moment. Whether the coordination center be in such a situation, a controller, maybe. It is difficult to create other mechanisms and to implement them. About the project office I started to tell you about, I believe that, and my colleagues and European experts say that assessment of risk is important concerning commercial activity and legislative basis and the peculiarities of energy system on the whole. And Andriy said that we have difficult conditions. There are two monopolies, and in this case it is important to see how these monopolies will behave in the context of the new model. And concerning the assessment of these risks, I believe that recently we'll have monitoring, maybe by Dixie Group or by the ministry, and this is discussed in international financial institutions, because the losses of consumers, we say that the market is needed primarily for the end users, for us, and it shouldn't create additional financial burden. And the main argument from the experts, media, and political forces that the price will go up. And this question maybe is the main one, and we do not have the representative of the regulator today, and there is no clearance in this issue. But the law does not create directly such an issue, and a lot depends on bylaw and the decisions of the regulator that it will take during these years, and then we will see what prices we will get. The model, a European model that was implemented in the transitional period, can theoretically, and it is shown in the modeling provided by Energy Market, and we did it in expert. It may not result in the increase of prices, but it depends on the rules and the actions of the regulator. Second risk that should be assessed now is technological risk and the introduction of software in this organizations in Ukrenergo, Ukrenergo Rynek, and from a European experience we may see that it is impossible to do this in 2 years. The balancing market introduction is difficult because existing infrastructure of Ukrenergo is obsolete, and the infrastructure of energy market is also obsolete, and any software will need the renewal of this structure, and the new market will create a lot of data that will go to systemic operator, and this operator will provide it to international operators. So we do not have the system now, and the scope of the problem is unknown. Plus the issues of security of the system and its protection from external attacks. So these are difficult issues, and we do not have experience in this, and we will have to take the experience of our international partners. And one more aspect I wanted to focus on is advocacy of the market. And maybe our colleagues from the committee of Verkhovna Rada will help us in this. We should explain to the end consumer why we do it. If people do not understand, if there is no understanding at regional business and local government and end user, so in present condition this reform won't be efficient. And I know this was done for the gas market with the support of the World Bank, and these projects were made in European countries, and they got accustomed to this. And for us, this is one of the basic moments. This is literacy of consumers and the creation of information media sphere and help of our foreign colleagues. And despite difficulties we face, we have one big advantage. We shouldn't start from zero. We should not invent a bike. As Yuliya said, we can use European experience, and this model is common. We shouldn't be afraid of it. There are no hidden stones in this, and we hope for successful implementation of this model here. So we end our discussion, and I would like to say several words and support Andriy about end users, about us. Any transformations in the market, they should be useful for people, because we are all consumers of electricity, and there are even more consumers of electricity than consumers of gas. So this is really important for all of us. Do you know that average consumption of electricity is about 160 kilowatt hour, and in Romania I saw 300. In the majority of European countries, 400, 600, and even 1,000 if they have a big household. So average consumption is at the level 450, 500. So what does it mean for us if we consume 160 kilowatt an hour? We are an energy poor country concerning population, and population will see these reforms yesterday I asked my relatives, I said, we adopted a new law, and they greeted me with the adaptation, but then they said, and what will I get from this? Maybe the prices will go up. So everything we say here, we should bring this information to our society, to voters, because in 2019 this market will start, and this will be the year of elections. Something will happen, elections or not. So this is a joke. And this is really important. And it is important to see how the consumers will see this reform. And the consumer today, they have metering devices, and we pay for electricity using these metering devices, and the quality of service, the provision of services and the quality of the service is far away from European level. And here we should have also a reform, because this Obelergo that will be unbundled, and there should be competition for consumers. And Obelergo said that the consumer is the biggest value. And who will defend this consumer? Maybe some institution, the regulator. But it is difficult to do this. And we will think, and there should be energy ombudsman. And this is the question to Supreme Council, because this law should be adopted. And we, as consumers, we should be conscious, and we should support it, and we should be protected.
I'd like to add about consumers and roles in the market. When we were discussing in Facebook, we also have in parallel the discussion what these reforms are doing. They change the rules of the games for those players who exist on the market already. But what is very important on this market is they start growing a specific consumer, small business or a household as the market player. What is important in any law, in any reform, that all players, market players, discussion participants understand their rights. For example, if we take consumer roles, it should not be any longer paternalist role where Obelergo should do something to me. If something is bad, then something on the top, on the other side, is guilty. Consumers, and the consumers I mean small businesses, large businesses, households, and we will promote via these rules on the market to promote him to choose the most efficient for him package of services, and also we would facilitate and we would encourage him to install renewable energy facilities, and also we will encourage them to unite into groups where they will be able to save electricity, and in the long-term perspective and the development of energy technologies. Indeed, I hope after 5 years we will return to the discussion where the main driver of reforms would be demand, but not supply and large generators. In our reality, they will remain in the market, looking into the real mix of generation, but the driving force of consumers in these settings should consumers should play large role, and consumers should understand what driving force on the market they will have to balance the interests of all players on the market. Thank you very much. This is very logical what you say, and consumer will be the highest value in the country and in the energy market. How much time do we have? We have about 20 minutes for listening to you, to your questions. So please answer your questions to our panelists. Gennady Ryabtsev. Mr. Leofilovich, you have mentioned the achievements, what you have managed to incorporate into the law, and what you have not incorporated, what you have not managed to incorporate into this law. Very good question. Of course, we would like to have fixed in the law the definitions which will prevent any abuse of its provisions. I remember when there was an EURC's decision on connection, when the head of the regulator referred in his reasoning to the work group discussion. So he referred to us. I understood it was a complete manipulation with our decisions, and we started to seek for solution so that we set forth some formulas in the provisions of the law preventing any abuse of our decision. Finally, we understood that this is unreal because the law is a framework, legislative act, and all rules and calculations cannot be included into the law. So in this case, we added some factors that should be used in order to prevent abuse of the law. So we have not managed to do this, but this is impossible to achieve this target as well. There was also large discussion that one idea which we could discuss from, it was voiced out by Yuliya Tymoshenko. She wrote that every generator who should have the share not above 15%. If it is so, then the competition would be real. The Energo would be then divided into 4 components. DTEC would be then divided into at least 2 components. If the law set forth this provision, of course the competition would be after that in place in Ukraine, but this norm was not possible to be provided in the law because there will be no votes. There would not be any votes in Verkhovna Rada for such provision. Bogdan Serebrennikov, Institute of Economy of Forecasting. I have 2 questions. First, to Andriy Nemyrovskyi. To my mind, it is obvious that to get effect from the implementation of the law, we need the minimum liquidity on the market. Then Mr. Leo said skeptically about the integration with NCE as a system operator. What is your vision of prospects of integration, its technical format, timing, and money you need? Thank you. The second question is to Mr. Andriy Perevertaiev. He mentioned in his speech that the European practices before fundamental reforms, scenario simulation is carried out so that we can understand what consequences to expect. So state enterprise Energo has conducted such modeling, such scenario simulation. So my question is, what approaches you used? Thank you for your question. Look, as concerns integration and synchronization with NCE, this is technologically complicated process, and I would answer your question the following way. Globally, for us to synchronize and connect to NCE, we need to meet technical requirements. About 80% of them are in the atom system, and also district heating companies. So globally, the most complicated thing is that we are very large in terms of European norms, and to synchronize to Europe, we should go through a trial period. There is a roadmap. It has been developed along with the system operators of Hungary, Slovakia, Romania, Switzerland, Poland, and Ukraine. Of course, we have this schedule and the list of measures, but as concerns timing, we try to be optimistic. We expect that within 5 to 7 years, we will find the opportunity to synchronize with European systems. This trial period means that over 1 year we will be isolated from Russia, Belarus, and we will not yet be connected to European system. We should demonstrate that we are self-sufficient system, but we have secondary regulation problems. Within 15 minutes upon any disbalance, generation should be started from secondary sources. This is a problem. As of today, this function is provided by Russia, their electricity grids. So my short answer is 5 to 7 years, but lots of work is not in our responsibility, not in responsibility of Ukrenergo. I would like to add, you have mentioned my skepticism. I was very optimistic and I believed in this project very much, but you know one fact about the Baltic states, Estonia, Lithuania and Latvia, who are united with the Russian and Belarusian grids, and they do not experience any problems of political wills, and their systems are far smaller than Ukrainian ones, and they last year took a decision to connect to European system in 2025. That is why I am so skeptic, because we have problems with political will, and we have also technological problems, and so on and so forth. Thank you for your question. Organizing of simulation, there was the several years process. We have been trying to create the simulation and forecasting system for the industry in general. What we have so far, no scientific approach. We have no standard software tools or standard simulation tools. What have been realized is the model, mathematical model, which is not of high interest for mathematicians, but for risk assessment. This model helps us to understand the peak prices and to incorporate actual data to assess what will be happening to the tariffs for households, for Ukrenergo, how much additional loads we will need according to certain scenario. The model is simple. It has been realized in Microsoft Excel. You can come to to us, and my colleagues will demonstrate it to you, but we are not ready to demonstrate it in open access because most of information in this database, in this tool, is confidential. I would like to announce that we have managed to agree with Ukrenergo that the simulation system will be developed at Ukrenergo basis, and for some period we will be using standard software tools of worldwide known applications such as Psar and Plexus, and we will see whether we need such simulation and whether Ukrenergo as a client needs it in terms of strategic documents, those policies which Ukrenergo needs if we get successful results. Yuri Favorsky, Renewable Energy Institute, I will not ask you about specific things. You have your proposals are very good, but nevertheless, the law adoption was so long. I didn't expect even that it is adopted. I saw that I took the program and I read page 6. The regulator starts competition of last resource contractors. What does it mean, last resort contractor? It is very pessimistic definition. No, it is just standard definition. As for me, last resort, well, the hope will die the last. No, our supplier will not die. Well, last resort sounds not optimistic way. This is just one type of suppliers. This is the world practice. The last resort contract suppliers are those suppliers who are bound to ensure electricity supply in the case of bankruptcy or rejection to supply power to certain clients. I have a question to Ms. Svitlana. Risks, item 4, Directive 2009, decision on energy ombudsman will be established. Maybe this institute would be the last resort supplier. Yes, the law set forth that controversies, disputes between transmission organizations could be resolved by energy ombudsman. The Ministry of Energy and Coal Industry, it is responsible for drafting this law. Me, Andriy, and several other experts have been exchanged for consultations. We have provided already consultations to the ministry. Unfortunately, the ministry started this work too late. The deadline was on 1st of June. They should have been submitted this bill before June 1st to the cabinet. This is very sad that they started activities, they started drafting this law 2 weeks before this deadline. So this bill is now in the ministries to get approvals from other ministries, but I do not think it is good because there was no discussion how the energy ombudsman would be established, would be really an arbitrator between consumers and suppliers suppliers. And by the way, we are talking not only about electricity, but also about gas, and the ministry also is talking about heat and maybe other utilities services, which adds and complicates this energy ombudsman institution. I think that we can get a very unsuccessful institution which will just spoil this good idea which has been very successful in Europe. We have 5 minutes left. Leonid Khomyakov, I'm the university professor on macroeconomic analysis. I have a question. Is there a connection between prospects and expectations of success from this transition period to the market, which would meet European standards and the hopes to overcome corruption inside the management? Maybe to Miss Yuliya Kovaliv, the question should be addressed. First, I would like to share interesting information that one of the 4 methods of calculating the level of shadow economy in the countries is the method calculating rates and increments of consumption of electricity. And the rates of dynamics in this indicator and GDP gives understanding of the trends in the shadow economy. What concerns the market and its impact, if we look globally on corruption, there are 3 or 4 main sources where it can appear potentially. First, as concerns state regulations such as licenses, regulations, permits, when bureaucrats communicate to businesses. The second is assets, and the third is procurement procedures. We have been actively healing procurement component via ProZorro procurement system. As concerns privatization and reform of state-owned enterprises, we are expecting positive changes soon. As concerns the first component, regulation of the state, here we try to simplify the system so that the number of permits and licenses is lower. Regulation of tariffs, regulation of investment programs, various licenses and permits, they give rise to risks. So how this law will be fighting with these risks? First, this law will give the right to generation to develop their own policies and not to be dependent on the ministry's decisions or other authorities' decisions. If this law is implemented properly and is not distorted by secondary legislation, subordinate legislative acts, then even potential risk of corruption would decrease. I would like to add the last scandal where the largest corruption scheme, Rotterdam Plus, it is prevented. It is impossible according to this new law, because the new market model doesn't have such model. I would be very brief in terms of scientific approach. There is the methodology of assessing competition on the electricity market in the country on the national level. There are 4 aspects: the role of regulator, role of monopolies, role of NGOs, and role of consumers. In the law, so far, these role of regulator is decreased, role of monopolies is decreased, role of NGOs should become higher. This is European practices because NGOs become the force, the driver, which will be of impact on their own interest, drive their own interest, consumer interest, and the role of consumers is 0 now, and it should increase according to this law. Unfortunately, we do not have time for questions. We are asking you to ask questions of record. Thank you for coming to this panel, to our speakers, especially to Yuliya Pidlisetskyi, who thank you very much.